talking about and you don't feel comfortable with it, that they're older, we might want to step out with them because she's going to be pretty raw and open about what the Bible says our role is as women. And so be open to that. We've been praying about this because it can be hurtful, but I think there needs to be clarity in what our role is and what God says about sex. So, Chantal, if you want to come up, you guys want to welcome her.
I don't know. Judging by all the pregnancies and baby sounds in here, I don't think this group really needs to hear this. It's like y'all might have this part down. No, I am so excited to get to be here with y'all today. And I'm mostly thankful because when Becky called me, she said, Chantal, we did this survey at the end of the year last year about topics that the women wanted to talk about, and one of the big ones that came up was intimacy. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. That means, as women, even in the stages of life you are with rocking little ones, you're still know that this area of life requires effort and focus and energy. It deserves a little bit of attention. And I also think it's so cool because you said, we want to talk about it here with a bunch of moms in church, right? And I think that's so important. Why? Because we talk about it all the time out there, right? And we're bombarded with all the messages about intimacy and sex from out there. But for some reason, you moms realize that maybe Oprah and Ellen and Cosmo don't have a beat on the truth, right? And you think, oh, well, let's go ahead and talk about it in here. I kind of feel like every time out there, every time I open or I turn on the TV, every time I open a magazine, and even when I click on my favorite news site, you'll see over on the side, 10 things you can do in bed to keep him from cheating, right? It's everywhere. And we might have realized that out there, things can get a little twisted. You've realized that we don't always get the truth from all of our talk shows. Or maybe you've even tried some of the things that the magazines tell you make a red-hot sex life, only to find them painfully lacking. Whatever the motivation, we're going to do this thing. We're going to talk about sex, good sex, right here in church. Actually, I think it's a good place to start. And why? Because church is about God, and God is all about sex. He's actually the creator of it. He's the one who said it was not good for man to be alone. And then once he brought the woman to the man, guess what he said? He said it was not just good, but very good. And I don't think it's just because she was going to keep things tidy and cook healthy meals. In fact, you can't even get through the first few pages of the Bible without hearing this. The man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. He says, the two shall become one flesh. The man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Now let me tell you something. My husband and I got to live in Mississippi for a while, and we found out that in the Hebrew, the word is not naked, it's naked. Do you know the difference? When we were in Mississippi, they told us the difference. Naked means you have no clothes on. Naked means you have no clothes on, and you're up to something. And this, ladies, is naked. I'm kidding. Of course, God created this beautiful idea of intimacy to seal the covenant of marriage. He also created it so the human race wouldn't die out. But anybody who tells tells you that those are the only reasons for sex hasn't read the rest of the story. In a seldom preached on book in the Old Testament, the Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, God gives us a bit more point of view what this naked and unashamed really means. And he does it through the eyes of a husband who's thoroughly enjoying his wife. You probably didn't read this in Sunday school, okay? All right, but you ready? Here's what it says. All right, go here with me. He says, "How beautiful your sandaled feet. Your graceful legs are the work of an artist's hands. Your navel," I don't know if he's talking about a navel, "is a rounded goblet that never lacks wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies. Your breasts are two fawns. Your neck is an ivory tower, and your eyes are like the pools of Heshbon. Your head is like the crown of Mount Carmel. Your hair is like a tapestry. The king is held captive by its tresses. How beautiful you are, and how pleasing, my love, with all your delights. Your stature is like that of a palm, and your breasts are like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree, and I will take hold of this fruit. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes on the vine. The fragrance of your breath is like apples, and your mouth like the best wine." To which she responds, "May the wine go straight to my beloved, flowing gently over lips and teeth. I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me." Whew. That sounds not exactly G-rated, right? Yeah, she was right to ask the older little ones to leave. It almost sounds like a Pop 40 song about a one-night stand, doesn't it? But it's not. It's the way God decided to describe this physical relationship between husband and wife. Can you really read this and then tell me that God is a repressed prude? No, you can't. No way. He is good. He is trustworthy. He has a plan for you, every area of your life, including your bedroom. It's not like God goes and covers his eyes. He's like, oh no, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe they're doing it again. The Lord wants you to have sex with your husband. This might be the biggest takeaway for some of us today. God wants you to have sex with your husband. And he wants you to be able to have great, wonderful, mind-blowing, soul-connecting sex. Right? I'm not sure how you grew up, but in my home, after I got the birds and the bees talk, the rest of the conversation was pretty much off limits. I remember when my mom first found out that I had had my first kiss. You know what she said? She said, if you're doing that, you need to stop. You need to stop right now. When I kind of pressed the question a little bit and asked her why, do you know what she said? She said, because you might find out that that feels good and you might want to keep doing it. The church I went to growing up was much in the same vein. They pretty much did the opposite of Nike. Just don't do it. So from then on, where did I get my sex education? I got my main information on sex from out there, not in here. And as you can imagine, I stand here today not as one who walked into purity in marriage. I had boyfriends through teenage years, and I remember in my college years, you could have found me at a bar with a bunch of my friends, standing on one of the tables. I remember this, okay? Standing on one of the tables, singing along with Billy Joel. You remember the song, Only the Good Die Young? Yeah, I was up there going, come on, the best, most wonderful romantic relationships were the way they were portrayed in movies and songs and all the magazines that I soaked up. As you can imagine, that's the way I walked into my marriage. It's quite a recipe for disaster. But God, in His graciousness, set my husband and me in a church where the preacher was not afraid to preach on anything, including sex. He opened up God's Word and helped transform my mind in thinking about all areas of life, including sex. He even got us to pray about our sex life. That might blow some of your minds, but we would pray. He told us, pray about it. First time my husband and I did that, we thought, is this okay to do? But it is. God's the creator. He wants to redeem it, and I can tell you that personally, because I got to see God clean up and totally bless this area of my life. What happened in my life actually reminds me of a pond that we have up at the retreat center that we help run. It's called Sunrise, and we have this 1.5 acre pond. And when we first got there about 12 years ago, this pond had a couple issues. About halfway through the summer, the dam on the pond would start to get blocked. And when the dam got blocked, the flow of water through the pond went way down. What happened then to our normally beautiful, when the dam got fixed, the water could flow freely. The pond stayed beautiful all summer long. And it became a place where everybody would congregate, sit and chat, paddle around in the paddle boats, and just enjoy. That pond mirrors a lot of what happened in my life. The twistedness that I'd gotten from all the messages out there had clogged up my dam. The water in it was so tainted when it came to my thinking about sex. But as parts of that dam were cleaned out, and as my thoughts and attitudes were changed in this area, the water started to flow, and it became a clear, life-giving place in my life. Experientially, it's not just my story that bears that out. For the past about 15 years, Matt and I've gotten the privilege of working with lots of couples. So often, when it comes to sex, there's gunk stuck in the dam. But when it's cleared out, we've gotten to watch God transform so sex lives into life-giving, intimate relationships. Nobody's sex life is perfect, but it can be like that beautiful, clear pond, a place you want to come, connect, relax, and enjoy. During the rest of our time this morning, I want to make sure that we talk about some common ways that we, as wives, block the flow of water through that dam. I hope sharing some tried and true practicals too will challenge and encourage you. Of course, sex is a two-way street, right? Yes. You should say yes to that part for sure. But this morning, we're going to focus solely on our part and the part we play as wives. And because we only have about half an hour here, it's important to acknowledge the scope of this talk is rather limited. I know that in a group this size, that some of you are probably dealing with some pretty serious sexual pain. There's infidelity from affairs or porn, or there may be some of you who are still working through past sexual abuse. And I'm so sorry. That's not God's plan. And while we can't address all of those issues specifically this morning, I can tell you that I've gotten to watch God transform tragically painful pasts into hope-filled futures. And I pray that what we talk about this morning might open up a place for you to be able to take the next step in healing with Him. So, here we go with some practicals. As human beings, we all have a heart, we have a mind, and we have a body. Both men and women, we got emotional, intellectual, and physical beings. That's the way we're created. And when it comes to sex, it might feel like that's our only similarity with men, right? A recent study that I read said that men think about sex approximately once every 52 seconds. It also said that women think about sex about once a day. Now I'm hoping you're above the norm, and today you for sure will be. But many people have also said that a woman's greatest sex organ is her mind. I'm sure you'd agree that whatever's going on up here directly impacts how we feel physically, and it most certainly impacts our amorous feelings towards our husband. So I want to look and say, how do we as wives, first of all, keep our minds free of the gunk that can clog the dam, that can cause the stagnant water to get algae covered and gross in our lives? How do we keep that dam clear so that the water can keep flowing and that our intimate relationship with our husband can be a fresh, clear place for us to come for enjoyment? I'm going to talk about three things: criticism, distraction, and sharing sex. Okay? Talk about those three things that we want to eradicate from the dam of our life to keep that water flowing. First of all, criticism. Sometimes we as women feel a little bit justified teasing, mocking, disrespecting men in our lives because they're just so different than we are, right? Anybody take your little people out for trick-or-treating? Yeah, and you see little girls and little boys, right? And it's kind of cute at this stage of the game, because all the little girls, not all, I'm generalizing, but a lot of little girls are dressed up like princesses, right? And deep within our hearts, all of us as women know we kind of want to be a little bit of a princess here and there, right? That, of course, gets killed off as we get older, and we figure out that there is really nobody who is going to bring us dresses and fix all of our meals and take care of all of our things we look around, and we're like, where'd our servants go? But there's this desire to be a princess, to be treated like a princess. On Halloween, what do you see little boys dressed up as? Superheroes, right? And what kills that off in the lives of the men that we know? They start off with this desire to be Superman, to be Batman, to be the hero, right? And I think as women, sometimes we're responsible for killing that off. So I would say one of the first things that we have to do, especially as wives, especially because we are the one who's going to build up that one superhero that we decided to marry, is to practice not criticism, but respect. To not be his number one critic, but to be his number one cheerleader. Now you might be thinking, Chantal, you spoke about that this is in our mind, and I would say yes, this is very much about our mind. If we go through our day, all day, mentally criticizing our husbands, does it show in our actions? Does it impact our sex life? Does it impact the way we feel and respond to him if we're constantly thinking negative things about our husband all day? I would say yes. And so what do? In order to clear that criticism out of the dam, we can focus on the good. We can focus on Thanksgiving. We can focus on the things that our husband does really well. A friend of mine called me one day and she said, okay, Chantal, I'm trying to be respectful and think positive thoughts and be thankful for this man who leaves his underwear on my floor every day. And I said, okay, Lisa, we have to turn this around. And she said, okay, let me hear this. And I said, well, instead of thinking, why can't that slob just pick up his underwear and put it in the dirty clothes? Turn it to this. God, thank you. Thank you that my husband's underwear is on my floor and nobody else's. God, thank you. Thank you that his little buns look so good Thank you, God, that he changes his boxers. There are ways to take almost anything and turn it from criticism in our minds to a mind that's thankful and respectful of our husbands. The second thing we want to clear out of that dam in order to prevent the buildup of gook is distraction. We live in a culture that is so busy, so full, with so many expectations. And as a wife and a woman and a mom, what is one of the things that we can do that really is a great tool? We can multitask, right? We can think about 5, 6, 7 things at once. We have this list, and we can go through and check it off, and when we get done with number 3, we are halfway on our way to number 4 because we can accomplish so much in so little time. Now, while that might work as a mom and a woman, when it comes to sex, multitasking is not good. It requires that we be fully present. It requires that we can take our minds and focus them in and be free of distraction. So how do we do that? How do we do that in a life that requires us to be so busy all the time? I would say there's another discipline. There's the discipline of being respectful in our minds, but there's also the discipline of on our way through our busy day, stopping and thinking about our husband, giving him our full attention. What does this look like? Well, this could look like a long hug before he leaves. It could look like a big kiss when he gets home instead of a little one. It could look like when you're texting all your friends and all the people you need to meet up with, stopping and going, do you know how much I love you? Thank you for the amazing way you make me feel. It could be texting, I can't wait till you get home tonight. I hope we have a little rendezvous this evening. Just make sure you send that to the right person. You laugh. My husband's name is Matt. One of my best friends, her husband's name is Matt. About once a year, one Matt gets a text from another Matt's wife. It's usually followed up by a very fast phone call to the other wife going, I didn't mean to do that. And it's carving out time, some special time, to be just wife and lover. Yes, sometimes that means a date night or a little getaway, but it can also mean just getting kids down to bed, right? Carving out a little time to just be the two of you. Maybe saying, I can do that other load of laundry tomorrow. Right now, undistracted time, focusing on this man whom I love. The third way that I think we clog up the dam of our sex life is by sharing sex. Sharing sex, I don't think I do that. What would you do if your neighbor, she called you up and she said, my husband and I are going to be getting it on tonight, and we are going to leave the blinds open. And feel free to, just peek in and watch while we do. What would you do? You would put a for sale sign up on your lawn the next day, right? What we do is we put a screen up in our home. And through that screen, we welcome in other people's sexual experiences. Now, you might be thinking, okay, computer porn, yeah. But I think there's even a lot of Christian women who I talk to will go, it was a great movie. Well, it had one sex scene in it, but other than that, it was awesome. It was such a great love story. We are willing to invite somebody else's sexual experience into our home. And while it freaks us out if we think about it being our neighbor, we welcome it in on a Saturday night. We also do it through what? Romance novels. Do you ever realize in those romance novels, nobody ever lays on anybody else's hair, right? It's always so perfect and wonderful. And we read these romance novels and we're like, oh, It's so easy, right? I just have to read to the back of the book and I'm good to go. We had a perfect sexual experience. Or we sing about it. We turn on the radio and we sing all these songs about things we would never dream of doing. Or maybe we would dream it. Matt and I talk to our kids about the titanium cup of marriage. We tell them, guys, marriage is this titanium cup, and sex fits in there because it's the only thing strong enough to contain the sexual relationship safely. And I think sometimes as women, when we're willing to bring in other sexual experiences through all the media we consume, it's almost like then we look into our titanium cup of marriage and we go, that's not that great. And God goes, no kidding, because you've been taking it out and sharing it with so many other people in so many other ways that when you look in there, there's not that much left. You've taken all the energy that I was hoping you would use in your sex life with your husband, and you're using it to watch movies and to read these books and to look at these magazines and to sing all these songs. Now, I know I sound a little fundamentalist, right? I know she's talking about movies, but it is. We fill our minds with that. And then it impacts our real life sexual experience. And so I would say, share sex with one person. Try it for a month. Get rid of all the other places where you might be sharing sex. Just share it with your husband for a month. And then tell me, look into that titanium cup of marriage, and tell me if it isn't a bit hotter than you've experienced before. So I'd ask you right now, which of the three of these? Would it be criticism? Would it be distractions? Or would it be the temptation to share sex with in other ways? Which of those three do you feel like is your biggest struggle? Do you find yourself grumbling about your husband in your head throughout the day?
Yes. It's been real. All the time.
Or are you so busy with chores and duties that you never slow down to focus on the man you love? Or maybe you are tempted to get your sexual fulfillment out there through some sort of media that feels a lot easier than a real life relationship. Are you willing to do what it takes to clear out the dam in this arena? If our minds as women are one of our greatest sex organs, then are you willing in your mind to encourage and build up and be thankful for this man? Are you willing to take the mental discipline to focus on him throughout the day? And instead of sharing sex here and there, are you willing to protect it just within your marriage? I can promise you, on the basis of my own experience, and because these principles come from the creator of sex, that every step you take in this arena will move you closer to a great sex life. But like I said before, we're multidimensional creatures, right? We don't just operate from here. We have these bodies. Then they have to be fully engaged, especially as women, to enjoy this great gift of sex. So let's think about a little bit about the more common things that creep in and cause us to stagnate physically in this relationship, in this physical relationship with our husbands. The first one I would say is carelessness. And I'm not talking like being careless with our husbands, because we just want to talk about what we're doing as wives. I'm talking about, when I say careless, I mean being careless with how we care for ourselves. All right? Now, some people talk about this and they talk about, making sure you look good, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not really talking about being an organically grown size 2 Botox to beauty. This is not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about making choices that bring real life. I think a lot of times as women, especially in 2016, we spend a ton of time in our virtual world, disconnected from our bodies. We choose things that don't help us to thrive physically. Some of those might be, we choose surfing the net over sleep that our bodies need. We might choose a lot of time on Facebook versus going out for a walk. I think we have to make some of those good choices to really engage physically with the real world instead of the easier choice to be engaged virtually with that world. I'd also say that, yes, where we don't have to be buy into the world's idea of beauty, there is a place for spending a little time to get pretty because I'm staying home. This is challenging to me because I have 7 kids and I homeschool, and my husband told me, he bought me some really nice workout clothes, and I was like, honey, that's kind of expensive. He goes, Chantal, this is your uniform. It's like, okay. But being able to say, okay, I'm going to take a little time today. I'm going to get pretty, not because we're going out, not because I'm going to see my girlfriends, but because I'm going to spend time with this man who chose me out of the other 7.5 billion people on the planet to be his wife. So taking a little time to be attractive just for him. One other thing, and this is the other one that challenges me, is reserving energy for our sex life versus just always having depleted weariness at the end of the day. Now, I know I'm talking to a lot of people who have babies, so this is a place where you have to get really creative, right? These little people take a lot of energy. But I've got a 2-year-old up to a 21-year-old, and I'll tell you, sometimes those 21-year-olds, you think that they don't take energy? Whew, okay. But being able to say, how do I reserve energy to be able to pour into the relationship with my husband physically, which a lot of times happens at the end of the day. I wish I had a silver bullet for this one. I wish I could tell you exactly how to do it. But I think there's a couple things that for me have helped. And I've shared those with you. And I think it'll be different for you. For me, one of the big things is exercise. If I can get 20 minutes on my Stairmaster, I am a lot hotter wife at the end of the day than one who just focused on little people all day long. For some women I've talked to, they say, if I can get a half hour in a bubble bath, then I can be ready for sex with my husband. Some other people, they like to put on something pretty at the end of the day. It's a little bit of lingerie. And for others, sometimes it's just being able to sit and be still for a couple minutes. I promise you, if you said, honey, if I could have 15 minutes to go in my bedroom by myself without the children, then I will be ready for sex tonight. You may have a very, very good babysitter on your hands. So some of those things, and I'm just going to say them one more time because they're kind of practical, but which one really helps you go, okay, this is one way that I could care more for myself? Would it be just making those real life choices, going for a walk, connecting physically to the real world versus the virtual world, shutting the computer off and going to sleep, taking a little time to get pretty, taking a bubble bath, getting a little exercise, buying something lacy and pretty, just having a little downtime. Those are ways that I feel like we can care more and take out that whole piece of carelessness from the dam of our sex life. The other thing I want to talk about is unprotected sex. Now, I'm not talking about sex without a condom. Obviously, I have 7 children. When I talk about unprotected, I'm going to the New Testament book of Corinthians, and this is one of the places where the Apostle Paul talks about this whole Corinthian culture. And if you know anything about the Corinthian culture, it was a dark place. I mean, they had temple prostitutes. They considered it an honor for their girls to be able to go serve there for a year. I mean, it was yuck. And so the Corinthian culture, when Paul wrote to them, he said, each man should have his own wife and each wife her own husband. He talked about, for the two of them, make sure that they performed their marital duty to each other. Paul was not very romantic. But he did give us a picture of that. He said, a husband's wife doesn't belong, or a husband's body doesn't belong to him alone, it belongs to his wife. And a wife's body doesn't belong to her alone, it belongs to her husband. And then he says, don't deprive each other of this, except for a time, but then come back together so that Satan won't tempt you because of your self-control. Paul was pointing to the fact that sex protects your marriage. Now, we live in a culture that is at least as dark as we live in a dark culture. This need to protect not just our husbands, but to protect ourselves in our heart, mind, and body is vital. And so being able to say, we won't deprive each other more than just for a small time, and then we'll come back together so that we can't be tempted. It's cool to watch that science is confirming this. Science says that there's all these crazy chemicals that go on in your brain during sex that bond people together. It's just confirming what God said. Make sure you're having regular sex to protect each other. I would say unprotected sex then is what? Depriving one another. Now, of course, certain seasons of life look different. Hear me say that again. Certain seasons of life look different. When everybody's getting up 3 times a night, it's difficult. But don't quit. There's so many couples that when it gets difficult, they quit. Don't quit. Keep on. This is the person who's going to be in your life long after those little people are gone. This is the relationship that you want to be thriving down the road, right? I've been there. I know what it's like when people are throwing up all over the house and you look at each other and you go, why did we ever get married? But being able to say, okay, I'm watching this. I know how long it's been. I know how many days we've gone and not had sex. And I am going to make sure that we don't go unprotected for very long. And the last one I want to talk about in being able to clear the dam of guck so that that water can flow freely is pulling out the need to be quiet. My husband and I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to talk about these 3 things, just, carelessness, unprotected sex, and quiet. He said, ooh, Chantal. He said, you're going to tell them not to be quiet? I said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not talking with our husbands about sex. A lot of women will talk with their husbands about anything. Let's take a budget, for instance. When you have a family budget, you have to talk about it at some level from time to time, right? None of us expects a family budget to just happen or take care of itself. It's a fluid thing. Needs change, jobs change, seasons change, and what works when you're dual income, no kids, doesn't work once you have a few children and mom staying home. We have to talk about our family budget, and we don't expect it to stay the same. We sit down, we talk about it, we figure it out. Why is it then, when it comes to sex, so many couples think there's no need to talk about it at all? That any issues will just take care of themselves. That through all the seasons of life, it'll just work out. That really makes no sense at all. It's vitally important to find ways to talk with your husband about your sex life. It's important to find ways to be able to tell each other what feels good, questions to ask to find out what feels best. If everything goes well, this marriage thing is a long-term gig. Let me see. How long have you been married? 11 years. All right. Do you know, because from recent studies, what demographic has the greatest level of sexual satisfaction? I'm going to tell you. It's monogamous relationships that have been together over 20 years. I've been married 23 years. Why is that? Well, there's lots of reasons. There's the security of monogamous relationship. There's 20 years of history together. But somewhere during that time, you figure that the couple has had to figure out the ins and outs of sex, right? They've had to talk about it and communicate about it at some level. And being able to say, okay, we're going to get there before 20 years and say, we're going to talk about our sexual relationship. For lots of reasons it can feel awkward, but it needn't. I'm going to give you 2 things to make this easier. The first one is the name of a book. It's one of our favorite books. It's called Sheet Music. Yes, as in the things you put on your bed. Sheet music. It's by Kevin Leman, Leman. If you haven't read this with your husband, you need to. If you've read it, read it a second time. It's a good, tastefully written book that is super funny, and it opens up the door to topics that would otherwise you might be a little self-conscious discussing. Matt and I took it on our 20th anniversary, and we read it out loud to each other when we were sitting by the pool, and we laughed until we were crying. It is a great book, and it helps just start that discussion between husband and wife on topics that maybe you wouldn't even think about, and things that could be more challenging. I'll tell you, that book helped us have the best vacation ever. So there's the book to help you get started, and secondly, we're going to do a little exercise, okay? I would like every table to come up with one thing a wife could tell her husband about her sex life, or one thing that she could ask him that would open the doors of communication and improve their sex life. So one thing she could tell him, or one thing that she could ask him. You're going to have to come up with a question or a statement from each of your tables, okay? I'm going to give you an example, okay? An example of something a wife could say to her husband to open up this topic of conversation would be, I love it when you ... Okay? We want to keep this PG-13. An example of asking a question would be asking, honey, how often would it be optimum for you to have sex? No rolling your eyes. All right, you have 2 minutes to come up with either a statement or a question that a wife could ask or say to her husband that would get the ball rolling in this area. Okay, you have 2 minutes, set, go.
You're like, this is what I discussed at Mom to Mom. Okay. Anyone want to start? Okay.
Okay, you have about 15 seconds now to pick the spokesperson for your table. All right, each table is going to just fire off a question. And ladies, as wives, I would love you to pick the question you think is best, all right?
Great. Go, Jessica.
Just asking him what he likes or what he likes, like what I can do to make him feel. So their question was, honey, what do you like that can make you feel good? They're doing a ditto. Here, just rephrase it. How would you say it? She's like, what can we do? I'm like, no. We gotta go back to the beginning.
What do I do that he likes?
Awesome. All right, ready? Gosh, in our sex-saturated society, it's so funny to me that we blush when we do this. Honey, if you did the dishes, it will give me time to take a shower. And if you didn't see it, there was a winky. The lady at the classical is the spokesperson. I love this. That's right. Oh, where would be your favorite place to have it?
Whoa.
Outside of the home. Okay. And when you get caught and then, out in the parking lot out there, I don't say anything about money. What do you find the most sexually attractive? What would make it better for you? I love it. That's just a simple question. Honey, what would make sex better for you?
They're all like, it's not good.
What can I do to make it more interesting?
I'm the spokesperson.
All right, spokesperson, give us a good one. Is there anything you'd like to see change in our sex life or would make it better? Awesome. Now, yeah, I do this because it's good to have questions, but it's also so awesome to just put it out there. It's hard. It feels weird sometimes. We talk about it so much out there that talking about it in here and talking about it with the man that we're actually having sex with, the man who's fathering our children, right? To talk about it with him can feel odd. So, my challenge, you have a weekend coming up here, right? I want you to select one of these questions or one of these statements, okay? Or you can make one up that's similar on your own. Select one of them. Carve out a little time this weekend and ask or tell your husband that question or that statement. Remember the reason. You're trying to keep the water flowing through the dam. You're trying to keep knocking out the just the quiet that surrounds this topic, even in great marriages. And may you be blessed. In closing, my hope and my prayer is that each and every one of you might enjoy the fun and the fruitfulness of great sex in your marriages. Granted, sex is not an end to itself, but when that water flows freely through the dam, the freshness of real sexual intimacy, as God created it, naked and unashamed, may be one of the greatest gifts in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. So table leaders, if you guys want to go ahead and get started with your questions, we'll finish up there.